The news broke like a thunderclap on a cold January morning, echoing through the quiet streets and bustling cafes alike. People paused, their routines interrupted, as headlines flashed across screens and newspapers. Serbia and Belarus formally apply to join BRICS. The announcement was as bold as it was unexpected, sending ripples across the continent. The headline was stark, simple, and carried the weight of a geopolitical earthquake. It was more than just news. It was a signal that the ground beneath Europe was shifting. For decades, Europe's story was westward expansion, nations lining up for the EU and NATO, eager to join what seemed like an unbreakable alliance of prosperity and security. But on January 5, 2026, that narrative shattered. The old certainties were suddenly up for debate. Suddenly, the continent's future was no longer a one-way street. New directions, once unthinkable, were now on the table. In Brussels, chaos erupted. Phones ringing, aides rushing, the day's agenda instantly obsolete. The corridors of power buzzed with urgent conversations and frantic speculation. This wasn't just a diplomatic maneuver, it was a symbolic act of defiance. It challenged the established order and sent a message to the world. Two European nations had turned their backs on the post-Cold War order, choosing a new set of allies and a different vision for their future. Their decision was both a break from the past and a leap into the unknown. The initial reaction, disbelief and alarm. Leaders scrambled to respond, unsure of what this meant for the balance of power. Was this a serious bid or a political stunt? Experts debated the motives, searching for clues in every statement and gesture. The coordinated announcements from Belgrade and Minsk suggested careful planning and encouragement from powerful BRICS players, especially Russia and China. The timing was no accident. The move was audacious, challenging the idea that the EU was the only path to prosperity and stability. It opened the door to new alliances and rivalries. The shock wasn't just about two countries, it was about the precedent and the questions it raised for all of Europe. What if others followed? This moment marks a turning point. The West's rivalry with the East has arrived on Europe's doorstep, no longer a distant concern, but a present reality. The lines of influence are now blurred, and Western assumptions are in doubt. The future is uncertain, and the old playbook no longer applies. The applications from Serbia and Belarus are more than paperwork. They signal a new, unpredictable phase in the global power struggle. The world order is being rewritten in real time. Europe itself is now a contested space, its borders and alliances in flux as never before. The comfortable certainties of the past are gone. The sense of unity that once defined Europe is now under strain. The continent faces a new era of competition, negotiation, and shifting loyalties. Every decision now carries greater weight. The world is watching as Europe's future is rewritten. Every move is scrutinized, every alliance questioned. The stakes have never been higher. The choices made now will echo for generations. The old order is under threat, and a new chapter begins. Europe stands at a crossroads, its destiny uncertain, its story far from over. Serbia and Belarus's BRICS applications mark a dramatic pivot away from the West, signaling a new era in their foreign policy strategies. Serbia, which has long tried to balance its EU ambitions with deep-rooted ties to Russia, has now ended its ambiguity and made a decisive move. This is a clear choice, a future aligned with Moscow and Beijing, not Brussels, as Serbia seeks new opportunities and security guarantees from the East. Belarus, already closely aligned with Russia for years, now cements its place in the Eastern orbit, deepening its integration with Moscow's sphere of influence. Both nations are rejecting Western political conditions, democratic reforms, foreign policy alignment, and sanctions on Russia, which they see as infringements on their sovereignty. Instead, they embrace BRICS's model of sovereignty and non-interference, hoping for economic growth and political support without external demands. For Belgrade and Minsk, this is a calculated gamble. After years of Western pressure, stalled negotiations, and mounting frustration with the EU's demands, Serbia is weary of endless EU hurdles, especially over Kosovo, which remains a major sticking point in its European aspirations and a source of national tension. Belarus, isolated by Western sanctions and political ostracism, is pushed deeper into Russia's embrace, relying on Moscow for economic and security lifelines. By applying together, they send a message of mutual support and collective defiance, showing unity in the face of Western disapproval. They demonstrate that Europe's future is no longer dictated solely by the West, but is being reshaped by new alliances and shifting loyalties. A new path is open for those who feel marginalized by traditional powers, offering hope for alternative partnerships and a reimagined European order. Serbia and Belarus's applications challenge the very foundation of post-Cold War Europe, shaking the assumptions that have guided the continent for decades. For years, EU and NATO expansion seemed inevitable, almost a law of nature, the so-called end of history, where Western institutions would always be the final destination for European nations. But this move shatters that illusion, proving that history is far from over. Instead, it's alive, unpredictable, and competition between great powers is back on the agenda. For the first time in a generation, European nations have a credible alternative to the EU or NATO, a choice that could reshape the continent's future. BRICS, once dismissed as a distant or even abstract concept, is now emerging as a real political and strategic choice on the European continent, offering new possibilities. The EU can no longer assume it's the only destination for its neighbors. The landscape is shifting, and the path forward is no longer singular or certain. The challenge is not just political, but deeply ideological. The EU's model of pooled sovereignty and shared rules versus BRICS's emphasis on national autonomy and flexible cooperation. BRICS offers cooperation without demanding conformity, a tempting prospect for those tired of Western lectures and prescriptive values, seeking a different path. A new fault line now runs through Europe, not just East versus West, but two competing visions of world order, each with its own promises and risks. On one side stands the liberal internationalist West, with its established alliances and institutions. On the other, a rising multipolar bloc led by Russia and China, determined to offer a different model of global cooperation. Serbia and Belarus's decision signals that this contest is no longer abstract, it is now happening in Europe itself, with real consequences for the region. The continent is no longer united in its direction, old certainties are fading, and new divisions are emerging in their place. The old order faces its most serious test yet, as the rules of the game are rewritten before our eyes. The future is up for grabs, and the choices made now will echo for generations to come. To grasp the gravity of this moment, we must understand BRICS. Originally an investment term for Brazil, Russia, India, and China, BRICS became a political bloc as these nations coordinated policies and held summits. South Africa joined in 2010, expanding the group's reach. The core idea gave major non-Western countries a louder voice and challenge Western-dominated institutions like the IMF and World Bank. In 2024, BRICS expanded, adding Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, Iran, and Ethiopia, transforming into a diverse coalition. BRICS now represents a significant share of the world's population, economy, and energy. Its new development bank offers financing with fewer political strings than Western institutions. For countries like Serbia and Belarus, BRICS means funding and support without Western conditions. The alliance is no longer just symbolic, it's a real counterweight to the G7. BRICS is reshaping the global order. Serbia and Belarus have different reasons, but both seek autonomy from the West. For Serbia, frustration with the EU's shifting demands, especially over Kosovo, drives the move. BRICS offers leverage, economic ties, and a way to reassert sovereignty. Russia supplies energy and diplomatic support. China invests heavily in infrastructure. BRICS membership formalizes these relationships, offering development without painful concessions. For Belarus, the calculus is survival. Sanctions have isolated Minsk, making it dependent on Russia. Joining BRICS opens doors to trade, investment, and diplomatic support beyond Moscow. It's a way to diversify partnerships and resist Western pressure. For both, BRICS is a strategic bet on the East's rising power. The application is a bold gambit for a new future. The news from Belgrade and Minsk has sent shockwaves through Brussels and Washington. For the EU, this undermines its enlargement policy and its leverage in the region. If EU membership is no longer the only option, the Union's influence wanes. The prospect of a BRICS neighborhood on the EU's borders is alarming. The EU must now rethink its approach, offering more tangible benefits or risk losing more neighbors. For NATO and the US, the implications are strategic. Serbia's pivot threatens military cooperation. Belarus's move cements its role as a Russian outpost. The broader concern, the erosion of the Western-led order. BRICS's expansion into Europe is a symbolic victory for Moscow and Beijing. The West faces a new challenge, and must respond or risk further losses. Applying to BRICS is one thing, Being accepted is another. Admission requires unanimous approval from all current members. Russia and China will push hard for Serbia and Belarus, seeing strategic and ideological gains, but India, Brazil, and South Africa may hesitate, wary of turning BRICS into an anti-Western bloc. The final decision will hinge on intense negotiations and possible incentives. The debate will test whether BRICS is an economic club or a political alliance. The outcome is uncertain and will shape the bloc's future. The world is watching. Serbia and Belarus's applications crystallize a new ideological divide. The West champions liberal democracy and a rules-based order. BRICS, led by Russia and China, promotes multipolarity and national sovereignty. This appeals to governments who resent Western pressure and value their own traditions. Competing narratives now dominate. Western media warn of authoritarianism, while Russian and Chinese outlets frame this as liberation from Western dominance. Each side seeks to sway global opinion. The ideological struggle is now fought with propaganda as much as policy. In this new Cold War, perception is reality. The battle for Europe's soul has begun. The world watches as Europe stands at a crossroads. The EU and US will use both pressure and incentives to keep Serbia and Belarus in their orbit. Within BRICS, the debate over admission will define the bloc's future, geopolitical challenger or economic coalition. Success for Serbia and Belarus could inspire others to follow, triggering a domino effect across Eurasia. The old certainties of the post-Cold War era are gone. Europe is now a field of competition between rival world orders. The choices made in Brussels, Washington, Moscow, and Beijing will shape the continent's destiny. The map of global power is being redrawn before our eyes. Serbia and Belarus's move is a symptom of a larger shift toward multipolarity. The future is uncertain, but one thing is clear. Europe's next chapter will be written in the language of rivalry, not consensus.